Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so if you're someone who loves to figure out the hidden mechanics of our digital world, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're basically putting on our detective hats to investigate the invisible forces that literally shape our online lives every single day. We're going to uncover how the boundaries of what we can read and write online are constantly being drawn, erased, and redrawn. And the crazy part is, it's often happening without us ever even realizing it. So let's start with a bit of a mystery, right? Think back to a time when you were scrolling through your favorite social media feed and you noticed something kind of strange. Maybe a comment you posted just vanished into thin air. Or maybe you were in a super lively live chat and suddenly the conversation just slowed down to an agonizing crawl. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder who pulled the strings there? Like, where do those deleted comments actually go? We so often just brush this off as a glitch or maybe some standard automated sweep, but what if every disappearance, every hidden reply, and every slowed down chat is actually a digital crime scene leaving behind tiny, invisible clues?
Well, to crack this case, we have a fantastic official dossier. We're unpacking an incredibly insightful article today titled Social Media and Boundaries of Reading/Writing in Comment Moderation. It was written by our lead detectives for today, researchers Aude Serrat and Maria Inés Leitão, and it was published in the highly respected journal Cadernos de Linguística, which is a publication of the Associação Braziliana de Linguística, also known as ABLIN. They essentially conducted this massive multi-platform analysis to figure out how these invisible borders are maintained, and what they discovered will honestly completely change how you look at your timeline.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, the invisible digital boundaries, and how platforms orchestrate our timelines.
To really understand these boundaries, the researchers point out that social media platforms are absolutely not just passive bulletin boards. They actually act more like invisible conductors, meticulously orchestrating a symphony of online discourse. They don't just host our conversations, they direct them. Now, the authors explain this by borrowing a concept from the philosopher Michel Foucault called governmentality. And I know that sounds like a massive mouthful of academic jargon, but the concept is actually fascinating and super relevant. Governmentality isn't about a dictator shouting orders at you. Instead, it's this really subtle framework of power that guides and configures our conduct from a distance. It makes certain actions way more probable without using any direct force at all. So on social media, this means platforms use their architecture, their code, their layout, their algorithms, to quietly nudge our behavior. They make us more likely to see certain things and less likely to say others. And it's all done under this guise of technological neutrality.
So the really crucial point here is that moderation isn't just about deleting hate speech. The researchers actually break moderation down into two very distinct types: regulating reading and regulating writing. When platforms control what we read, they're modulating what audiences can see. They do this through algorithmic sorting, like deciding exactly which comment appears at the top, or by just flat out hiding certain replies. On the flip side, they control what we write by restricting access or shadow banning users so their posts just go completely unseen by anyone else. They're literally orchestrating both sides of the conversation simultaneously.
Moving on to Section 2, the hybrid moderation machine, and how this orchestrator actually works. So how does this orchestrator actually function behind the scenes? Well, the reality is that literally no single human could possibly moderate the millions of comments posted every single hour. It's just not possible. The researchers point out that platforms rely on what they call a hybrid logic. On one side, we have algorithmic automation. This is the cold, rapid, massive filtering done by scripts and code. It catches obvious role violations for sure, but it's highly opaque and notoriously prone to misinterpreting context. Then on the other side, we have human intervention. Humans step in for the messy, nuanced reality of online debates. They handle the really ambiguous or highly contextual cases. But here's the catch. These two forces absolutely do not work alone.
In this whole digital ecosystem, there are actually three distinct suspects, three key players who have the power to alter the digital evidence. First, obviously we have the platform itself, enforcing its global rules. Second, we have the content owner, so think of a political party or a media channel. They can delete comments or block users on their specific page just to protect their brand. And third, we have the public. That's you and me. We can flag and report content, which then triggers the algorithms or the human reviewers. These three suspects are constantly interacting, which makes it incredibly difficult to know exactly who pulled the trigger when a comment suddenly disappears.
Which brings us to Section 3, searching for digital traces during the 2022 French elections.
Okay, so to investigate how these suspects actually operate, Serrat and Leitão needed a massive, highly active digital crime scene. And they found the perfect one in the highly charged 2022 French presidential elections. This was a time of intense political debate, super high emotions, and consequently, really heavy moderation across X, YouTube, Twitch, and Instagram. But here's the problem. How do you study something that has literally been designed to disappear? Well, you look for traces. Drawing on the work of Yves Generay, the authors define a trace as a fragmentary, mediated digital remnant. Think of it like this. When a comment is deleted, it doesn't always just vanish cleanly. It leaves behind a mysterious void, maybe an inconsistency in a conversation thread or a delayed notification. A trace isn't absolute proof of who did what, though. Rather, it's an enigma. It's a puzzle that researchers have to decode.
And to decode these enigmas, the researchers basically had to follow a very strict methodology. Step 1. They had to observe massive amounts of cross-platform data and save it in real time. Step 2. They had to revisit that exact same data years later to locate the missing or altered fragments, the voids that were left behind. And step 3, formulate hypotheses about the moderation intent. You see, since the platforms keep their algorithms locked away as highly protected intellectual property, researchers obviously can't just go read the code. They can only look at the outline of the missing puzzle piece and deduce what happened.
Let's look at the evidence in Section 4, investigating 3 case studies. Now, this is honestly the most exciting part of this explainer. Let's look at the actual evidence they gathered during those elections. So, trace number 1, the missing YouTube comment. Our setting here is a YouTube channel officially run by the French presidential candidate Éric Zemmour. The researchers saved the comment section during the 2022 campaign, right? But when they checked back in 2026, they found a very distinct void. A highly critical comment had just vanished. And here is the translated remnant of what that user actually wrote before it disappeared. Zemmour, when confronted with your contradictions, you only dodge the issue. Incorrect people end up sooner or later breaking their teeth. It's a harsh, pointed critique, and suddenly it was just gone. But here is the kicker. The user's account was actually still totally active in 2026. This means the user themselves didn't delete their account. So, who erased the trace? Now, what's really interesting about this is the ambiguity itself. The researchers note that this trace is a pure enigma. Did the channel owner, so Zemmour's team, delete it to protect the candidate's image from this harsh critique? Or did YouTube's automated system delete it because that phrase, breaking their teeth, triggered a violation of community rules against violence and harassment? Because of the platform's opacity, we literally just cannot know for sure. The invisible boundary was drawn, but the architect, they remain totally hidden in the shadows. Okay, let's move to trace number 2, the skewed most popular ranking. This time we aren't looking at what was deleted, but actually how what we read is mathematically manipulated. On YouTube, comments are usually sorted by top comments, which, we all naturally assume means the most liked, right? Well, the researchers looked at identical radio interview formats posted on YouTube for 3 different candidates. For candidate 1, the top displayed comment was indeed the #1 most liked comment. Makes sense. For candidate 2, the top comment was the 2nd most liked. Close enough. But for candidate 3, the comment pushed to the absolute top of the feed was actually the 27th most liked comment. Think about that for a second. The pure math was just completely overwritten. And this brilliantly illustrates how platforms go way, way beyond simple math. Why on earth was the 27th comment elevated like that? The researchers analyzed the text and found it utilized some really subtle irony, specifically targeting the journalist conducting the interview rather than the candidate. The algorithm clearly favored a specific contextual tone and engagement style over raw popularity. It was actively curating the reading experience, ensuring that viewers saw a specific narrative first. Finally, we have trace number 3, Twitch's slow mode. Now we're shifting from asynchronous platforms like YouTube to a live, synchronous broadcast on Twitch, featuring another political interview. Because Twitch chats happen in real time, the moderation has to be totally immediate. The platform offers a specific tool called slow mode, which literally forces users to wait a set amount of time before sending another message.
And during this specific broadcast, the researchers noticed traces left not by the platform, but by the public reacting to the invisible boundaries. Like 11 minutes into the stream, a user complained, "Slow mode of 1 minute is a bit long." But then later, during a superheated exchange about sensitive religious topics, another user actually pleaded, "Is there a way to put the chat in slow mode?" The audience themselves left traces of the friction caused by the platform's moderation tools.
So, why did the channel operators trigger slow mode in the first place? Was it to stop an incoming wave of supporter spam? Was it a calculated move to cool down a heated debate about religion? Or was it literally just to improve general readability because the text was flying by way too fast? Once again, the intent is a complete enigma. We see the tool being used to control the speed of the public's writing, but the true intent of the orchestrator is locked tight behind closed doors.
Finally, let's wrap this up with Section 5. Who governs our timelines? The verdict.
So, what is the ultimate verdict of Surratt and Leitano's investigation into our digital ecosystems? The absolute core takeaway from this dossier is that we have to abandon the illusion that social media platforms are just these neutral public squares where ideas freely compete. They are not. Through a really complex, hybrid web of human action and automated algorithms, platforms are active architects. They use Foucault's governmentality to quietly decide who gets to speak, who gets pushed to the very top of the pile, and what simply vanishes into the digital ether without a single trace. Which leaves us with one final, lingering question to reflect on, as you go back to scrolling your feeds, reading comments, and leaving your own digital traces. When the algorithm acts as the invisible orchestrator, who truly controls your digital public square? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning what you see out there, and honestly, just as importantly, keep questioning what you don't see.